The West is portraying Vladimir Putin as Hitler. Yes, he is killing peoples, putting children of Russia in jail for protesting against the move chosen by Russian government in Ukraine. Also, he threatening the world for a nuclear war, just like Hitler did in Second World War. But wait, is only Russia to be blamed for all this happening in Ukraine? Because recently, Russian president invited Ukrainian president for peace talks, even before the talk with Russia. Ukraine's president has claimed that they had little or no hope. Zelensky added that he was still going ahead with talks with Russia, so that the people of Ukraine do not conclude that our president did not try enough. Back to the topic. Let's discuss if only Putin is the Hitler or someone else. What we see in news today clearly shows that Putin is working like Hitler. But wait, majority of the media is Western, and what about Russian side of story and their insecurities? So, let's find out.
And Boris Johnson has compared President Putin World Cup promotion to Hitler's notorious use of
Putin's worried that his own people might kill him. The Hitler-Putin comparison is a scary case of history repeating itself.
Putin's evil, illegitimate invasion of this sovereign democratic country. It has major consequences all over the world.
Hitler and Putin has some similarities itself. Similarity number 1. Bombing of Ukraine. Bombs are being dropped on Ukraine for the first time since World War II, even on civilian areas. Similarity number 3. Invasion. In October 1918, after the World War I, the lost territories were distributed in several parts, in which one part was Sudeten region. Later this region was added into newly formed country, Czechoslovakia. But 3 million ethnic Germans lived in this region. By making this an excuse and saying that our people are being oppressed, Hitler invaded the region and occupied it. Even he invaded the whole country of Czechoslovakia. Don't you think this is happening again? Means Ukrainians are oppressing Russian speakers of Donbas region by saying that Russia invaded Crimea and occupied it. And world thinks Russia going to invade the whole country of Ukraine. These scenarios or stories portray Putin as Hitler. Right. But there is always more what meets the eye. Let's talk about the other side of story, which means betrayal by the West, and how Western media influenced us to think Putin as Hitler. Betrayal number 1. The Malta Summit. In Malta Summit 1989, U.S. President George H.W. Bush verbally said to Soviet General Secretary Mikhail Gorbachev that U.S. would not take advantage of the revolutions in Eastern Europe to harm Soviet interests. Plus, NATO will not expand its territories in the eastern side to protect the Russian interests. But today U.S. is refusing its promises. And the proof is, U.S. is standing with NATO to harm Russian interests. Also today, ex-Soviet nations like Romania, Hungary, etc. have joined the NATO, which means NATO has expanded its territories in the east. Betrayal number 2. Draft agreement between Russia and NATO. Russia-US. U.S. says that Russia never raised for peace. But the truth is, Russia raised for peace twice in a single day. Its first approach was in the 17th of December 2021, when Russia put a draft on table with NATO. The draft had many clauses regarding peace between NATO and Russia. Article 1 of draft says, NATO and Russia will cooperate with each other and will never strengthen their military with international organization to harm opposite countries. And if both parties have an issue, then it will be solved peacefully. Article 3 says, NATO and Russia will never consider each other as adversaries. Article 5 and 6 says, NATO and Russia will never deploy short-range missile in other country allowing them to reach the other party. And it clearly was mentioned that NATO will not expand its territories further, in which Ukraine will never be a part of NATO. Its second approach was also in December 2021, when Russia puts in another agreement in front of US on the same day. Its Article 1 says, parties will cooperate with each other. Article 3 says, parties will never fight a war against each other by using other country territories. Article 4 says, US will stop NATO from expanding territories in East, and there will be no deployment of military in ex-Soviet nations. Article 7 says, parties will never deploy its nuclear weapons outside of its own territories. Do you still think that Putin is a Hitler, or West making him Hitler? US and Ukraine rekindle the extinguished fire by doing these things. Number 1. Unfriendly attitude towards Russia on all fronts. As we all know, in November last year, Russia asked for a legal guarantee that Ukraine will not join NATO, because obviously, that could be proved as a security threat to Russia in future. But instead of talks, in December, America chose to go another way. Means threatening Russia with strong economic and other measures, and also deployed 30,000 of NATO forces in eastern countries in February. which escalates the whole situation. And another person is also escalating this situation by provoking Russia. His name is Vladimir Zelensky. He started putting conditions before peace talks. Conditions like peace talks will not be conducted in Belarus. Beside this, when meeting was about to start in Belarus, he said, I have no hopes with these peace talks. I mean, if you have already considered that peace talks not gonna work, then would you even care to hear other party concerns? Do you even want peace? Plus, US imposing too many sanctions on Russia, which directly or indirectly would harm small countries. On the other hand, US is still working with Russia in the field of space research and in space station. Is this hypocrisy or not? Our next point is America's indirect invasion of countries through NATO. In the case of Serbia, Kosovo was the region that wanted to separate from pro-Russian Serbia, and hence was backed by US and NATO alliance. When Russia complained in international court, then court said, International court doesn't hold any such law that can prevent a region separating from its parent country. Similar game was played in Malaysia, which was a part of Indonesia. But the Malaysian rebels was getting support from USA. Hence they are a separate nation. Biden said the demand of keeping NATO away from East is unrealistic. But when Peru ordered Mirage fighters from France, America saw this as a military buildup and claimed it to be a possible security threat. Basically, own fear realistic and others fear unrealistic. How fair is that? Also, US is circling Russia by deploying its nuclear weapons in 5 countries of Europe. The names of the countries are like this. And do you know where are those nukes in the map? Well, look at this map showing nukes hosting countries. Isn't it threatening? Let's assume Texas state of USA wants to separate and it succeeded. Now Russia comes and start deploying its nukes in the state of Texas. How would USA react to this? USA had banned the word communism. That simply shows this is the ideological war that USA is fighting with Russia. Just like Hitler, who wasn't fighting for his country, but for his ideology. Ideology that Aryan race is superior. What do you think about this? Also write in the comments section. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe for more.